Okay, she's recording. Can you hear
Yes.
her? Okay.
Good. Got it.
Okay, great. How
Yeah.
are ya?
Good. I even have my my own coffee cup as per my last email.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, actually an associate got it and we did like a mug exchange and I got this and he came up to me, he's like, "Oh, that's not offensive." I'm like, "No, I love it."
That's a great idea. Mug exchange. I love that.
Yeah.
The pretty funny ones, couldn't you? Did you do it like
Yes.
did you do it like a white elephant type of thing where you could pick a different one or what?
No, we did it like one of the girls read Christmas poem and you pass left, pass right, pass left, pass right, and then whatever like you end up with is yours.
Oh,
It's like Santa left for the right elf who went to the,
what a great idea.
Yeah,
I,
you can take it.
Yeah. We need to do that with like church. You know, we have that Christmas thing. We did the ornaments. We need to do mugs instead this year.
Yeah. So if I already have an ornament.
Why are you so ahead of it?
Say a participant is able
It's
close.
just transcript. Don't worry about it. It's just
Okay.
just a written transcript. Is it in your way?
Yeah.
Or it's just
No. I just said accept it or like it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry, I should have warned you. Okay, so you're at your house.
What?
What'd you say?
I said I already have my ornament, but we could still do a mug.
You're so on top of it.
No, not. I do have can I answer your 911 question? Can I just jump in and tell you all my
Please, that's what I was gonna ask. Yeah, go ahead.
One gut. Now that I know how these sessions go, I can just like know what's happening.
I love it. Perfect.
Updates on our crazy department.
Okay.
In fact, crazy, not a nice word. Updates on our department that has lots of moving pieces.
Okay.
We, since the last time we've talked, had 2 people resign. One that's leaving the first week of November, the other one that's leaving Thanksgiving week. They both have to, we require a 4-week notice. And so that's both 4 weeks. So we, I was developing a cross coverage plan last week after the end of last week on Friday, after I learned of one of them, and then heard about the other one yesterday. So I had a meeting on Friday to go over the hey, would really like feedback on a couple of things. One, people are leaving because of compensation, which we've known, and I can't do about that. Well, I didn't say that. I said everything I feel like I can do, I have done, and let me tell you what that is. Like I feel like a year ago, I didn't have the confidence that everybody that needed to hear these things had heard it, and so I feel like I have had conversations with and spoken with who needs to hear that, and I can have full confidence that it's gotten to the people that need to hear it. So I feel that, and that's really kind of where I feel like I can take it. Like now it's with bigger people, and I'll continue to pursue here's more information to give to them to take it up the right ranks. But in the meantime, I would like feedback on, other than that, how can we make this place somewhere that's really attractive to work for you, so that if you did have other opportunities, you would want to choose this over that. And I did some brainstorming before, but I wanted to hear their feedback. And they were hearing me out, but they're also pretty young staff. So it's they kind of needed options. What does that even mean? So I said, some ideas I had were, I'm trying to think of which way we went. We talked about different cross-covering bubbles instead of the whole department feeling the weight of the whole department. But then I also talked about, we're going to have to continue to pull back, and I'm happy to be the one to communicate what we can and can't do. because they have a hard time with some of that, which I understand, because some of it is like, how do we just say we're not doing that? And then I also talked about saying that 3 p.m. is our cutoff time for communication. And like if physicians or teams haven't reached out or consulted, that it will have to be done the next day. And again, it's like the hospital's gonna have to feel that we're not staffed enough. And so 3 o'clock could be, you now could leave and you have like 2 more hours to your day or need to wrap stuff up, but you could remote chart at that point. Because the hard thing about our clinicians that are out in the field is that you have to be present. If like, oh, we're discharging a patient, we need this education done so they know how to mix their tube feed when they go home. So it's like, we're basically communicating. If that hasn't happened, then you're going to have to either keep your patient overnight and we'll do it tomorrow, or you're going to need to make sure you communicate that in the morning. And then that gives our dietitians the flexibility of like, okay, if I want to leave at 3 and I want to chart my other 2 hours from 9 to midnight or whatever, they can. So like, this gives you more life flexibility, especially I also pitched that it's about to get dark early. So people that want to go like work out earlier or do whatever, enjoy a little bit of the daylight with all of our mental health that is like potentially suffering from this, it's like go enjoy some daylight and then chart in the evening so they liked it, but then they said we want to have a brainstorming session before we get back to you about some of this. And that's because the girl that was going to quit yesterday needed to tell the team on Friday, like, hey, before we get too deep in this cross coverage isn't going to work because I'm about to also be leaving, which fair. But then it makes me feel like I'm just kind of always spinning my wheels too. And we're literally about to be in a place where it's like, I don't know what else to cut back on, and like that, I feel like that should be my, what I should know. Is that other than like meeting with some of the head physicians to say, what do you guys need? But they also don't know like all of our policies and what's required by regulatory. And like, I have to make sure that still stays compliant. That was the other thing I had pitched to them. Like, our documentation is pretty lengthy. But within the policy, if you read it a certain way, I was like, we don't have to chart. I'd like to cut out charting on things that are just like continue the same plan. Like if you're going to continue the same plan, I want you to write same plan or refer to that note, move on. Which sometimes you want to write that because you want to like justify why you're continuing the same plan. I'm like, we don't have time for that right now. So anyways, I for sure feel like we can move on from some of that, but that's 2 resignations. The girl that left, that was our other lead dietitian, left, but was PRN, thinking like she'd be able to maybe come back and help with some things. And her and I talked yesterday, and she's like, I need to like just totally cut things off. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to stay PRN. So I don't know if that counts as our 3rd quit. I mean, really, she's gone, but Lindsay. There's just like, she's at St. Jude now, and the reason like she would stay on PRN, our department's changing way too much for her to be able to be involved. Like, she wouldn't even know how to jump in and do some of those things. And so she owns that division of responsibility document, and I thought it was on our share drive, and I was like, I cannot find this anywhere. I can't find it in our emails. And she's like, I'm sorry, I probably still have it. Like, let me make sure I like formally share. She probably brought a copy of it to our like final meeting, to look over it, and I never held it. So I'll have to get that. Like, I have some of mine that I had written out, but I'll get that, and I feel like I can better look at that as part of my homework. But I did do my other things. But look, I can just stop there. Do I have any other questions or things I need to tell you about that?
Yeah, I want to know how you're feeling in light of these resignations and Lindsay backing out of being able to do PRN. What are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel like I agree with Lindsay's decision. Like, I completely support it. I agree with Lindsay's decision, completely support it. I almost feel like that was more of Amanda wanting her to stay on PRN. And while it was a little dreamy, it just like looks kind of better for our numbers. Like, we don't have as many, it's not a total resignation, right? It's you're staying on PRN, but what she'll be able to do in that capacity is not enough. So I feel like that was good. We needed to have that conversation. We needed to move on. My biggest concern is just things like this that like I run into that I need. I'm like, okay, I need this. It's not anywhere. And if she loses access, I'm nervous that we're not going to have everything. But the other two, I guess I kind of feel back to our like goals and plans of creating these processes and having this whole beautiful plan. And I'm like, this is again like a setback in I'm having to have these conversations and figure out these other plans. And like, I guess having these processes, whatever would be helpful because I'd have that to go to for some of it. But it just feels like we're kind of getting to the point where it's like, I don't know. What is the point of my role? Or what is the point of my role? But I feel like it's going to be kind of giving up if I just jump back into staffing, which might need to be what happens. But then who does all of the other things? Or do those even need to be done? I don't know. So I guess I'm having those questions of just like, what do I need to be doing? And feeling a little bit like, I don't know, like what's the Methodist Le Bonheur gonna do, or like where is this going, and what do I need to be doing in that? So I need to. One of the things I wanted to do yesterday that didn't happen yet is write our critical staffing for us is like a percentage when you're down so much, and I wanted to like re-come up with that. And I know we're for sure in critical staffing, but like I'd like to have that number to be able to report to people when like they're asking us to do things. It's like, hey, would love to be able to send a dietitian out to there to do that, but we have 48% of our staff or something, you know, just so it's like a number that, but so I feel a little like hopeless, but also like still desire to do well, just don't really know what that looks like. And very underappreciated, like for what I have done, like with things I have been doing and working on. I just feel like I feel like there hasn't been the word to it. I don't know. So I think that's just the role, you know, like even like at our church, even doing that like pastor appreciation thing, it was a good reminder to me too of like all the things we could feel, but if you don't share them, people don't know that you think that. And when you stand in a leadership position, that can be isolating, right? Because you're standing in a position where you don't always get the response. I mean, you might get some, you know, like compliance but you don't always get to hear like, hey, I see what you're putting, you know? And so that just made me feel like, yeah, we do need to be more cognizant or like more intentional about doing those things, being in a position where I feel like I could feel that way too. That makes sense?
Yeah. So yeah, I heard you say hopeless, but still committed maybe to figuring it out, and underappreciated. But one of the things I want to ask you about that last word, the underappreciated word, because what you talked about was, when I feel this way, it reminds me that I want to appreciate others. Do you feel like leaders need appreciation? Like, is that a fair ask for leaders to get appreciation?
I think it's helpful because some of that appreciation is going to guide what you're able to continue to do. So if you feel like this is received well and appreciated, that's what you continue. And things that maybe you don't hear that about are things that you're like, okay, that one, that's helpful. But if you don't hear some of that feedback, kind of don't know which one of those to take. That makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a method of feedback for you to know if you're doing well and the right things. What, when you think about whose responsibility it is to provide a leader appreciation, or even for you, who is responsible if you have a need for appreciation? Where does the responsibility lie in getting that need met?
So I guess I'm putting the responsibility on my staff, but really it could be Amanda, or no? That's
There's not a, no, there's not a right, it's not a quiz. I just wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on where you think.
my staff, like hearing some of their comments, and like I do feel like the two leads of anybody are helpful and like, hey, this was helpful, like thanks for doing this, or like I feel very confident that this is going where it needs to, having you go. So like things like that, I'm like, okay, like that's helpful. But like as you asked that question, I was thinking I do feel like I'm relying on my staff to provide some of that, when really maybe I'm over relying on that and they're not delivering because I know I'm not going to get it elsewhere from like my boss. Like I don't get anything.
Do you feel like your staff knows that that's a need?
Probably not. Yeah, so. But I guess it's also like, they know that their feedback is valued from what I communicate. Like, hey, I'd like to have this feedback session, or hey, please come to me after this. And it's not all the time, even like the opportunity isn't taken that often. Like, so like the Friday meeting was pretty mandatory. Like, I'm about to change your job, so you probably want to be here kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that like very, okay, I should be there. But other times I've asked for feedback, even when it's going to affect them, sometimes they're just, like, they just don't. They like just dismissed more. Sometimes it feels like, and so I'm like, okay, and I don't know.
Why do you think that is?
Probably some of the culture of our department, of like what historically what feedback has done, and then some of it has been like, okay, we've given you the feedback of like compensation, and like we haven't seen anything from some of that. I don't know.
When you say what feedback is done, what does that mean?
Like if they give feedback, they don't see their feedback like being implemented all the time, right? Like they're specific, it might be like, I got all the feedback, but here's what we are going with, kind of.
Okay, because you kind of said that, like, two things: what feedback has done and that nothing gets addressed. So is there negative things that have happened as a result of feedback?
No, I think somebody is at my door.
Okay. Do you need to do something about that, or just?
Maybe. I think it might be the guy to check the gas line. Can I just let them in really quick?
Absolutely.
I'm like, who is this? Okay. Do you want me to pause you, or do you want me to?
Nope, go ahead.
How are you? Good. How are yourself? Good. Good. What do you need from me?
Where's the water you're at?
Okay.
And where was it? Does it seem like they moved it some?
They were like 2 feet away.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, you're
He's
fine.
up there. Okay,
Okay.
I'm back. Let's just,
Is it a
I
good
got
time
my-
to continue or do you need to take a break?
yeah, I think it's okay. He's
Okay.
gonna, he's on.
Okay. Okay, so I think where we left off, where we were just talking about the feedback and the appreciation and so I was asking, whose responsibility is it to meet your need for appreciation? And you were kind of thinking through, I think it's my staff, maybe it's my boss. And then I was asking, do you think your staff knows that you need that? And you were like, probably not. But they know it's valuable. So, I'm wondering if you have this need, how you can get it met.
Mm-hmm. I guess it feels something, it's like weird to ask for. Like, I feel like, why am I asking them for that? Right? Like, should it be somebody else that's asking them to give that to me? Or,
Well, I mean, I guess that's a great question. I think because if you're thinking about it as appreciation, it could feel weird.
right?
But you're
But
talking
like,
about it,
is that really what I want?
right? It sounds like that's what you're needing is just you want to hear feedback so that you can make continue to make good decisions or continue down pathways. And that feels like a fair ask.
We have our associate feedback survey that's coming up, which maybe could provide some of that, but our department is in such like a negative mindset, and what's happened, like, I'm not surprised if several don't take it, and I have a hard time asking them to even take it. So that's not helpful either.
Is there something that you could do, knowing that that's difficult to take right now because of the way they feel? Is there a different approach? Or is there a higher need to be met first that you actually can control? What can you control in that, I guess? Yeah.
What could I control in them taking it? Or
no, getting the feedback, because that's what you're really needing.
oh, yeah, doing something outside of that, like just going directly to them asking for like feedback, like sending out my own something to get feedback versus having them take this big corporate feedback. Because like I would say there's only % of that I need.
Yeah. And put yourself in their shoes for maybe a minute. What would you appreciate, your boss coming to? Yeah.
I'll send an email back and forth to them. If you hadn't heard something from them back by Friday or so, I'll give them a call.
Okay,
All right?
much appreciated. Thank you. Have a good day. Just had somebody come out to check the gas line to tell me that somebody else has to come check the gas line before he can come check the gas line.
It's always something, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. What could
be meaningful to you? As you put yourself in their shoes and considering all the things you've just told me, what approach would be meaningful to you?
I don't know, because part of me is like, I could create something, but then it just feels like another thing to do in an already busy time. I also feel like they're going to feel the same way. Like, do you want me to fill this out? It's another thing to do. I don't know that I have an idea what approach would be meaningful to me.
And I mean, I think even maybe don't think of like the methodology when I ask that question, but what would be important to convey in a request for feedback at this point to your team? What do you think they would need to hear?
Yeah, I feel like what they would need to hear is what I've already said. Like, I'm very very open to whatever way they would like to give it to me, right? Like, hey, if you feel like you would like, if you could email me some of your feedback. I guess I could be more vocal again, and hey, I'm looking for more feedback. I don't want to take time by sending out a survey or XYZ. So whatever form of communication that's best for you, if it's phone call, an email, whatever, I would love to know your input to what is going well, or maybe what's not going as well.
Do you think you have a sense of that, of what's going well and what's not going well?
Do I think they have a sense of that?
Do you have a sense of that?
So I have a sense of what they think is going well and not going well.
And what you think, yeah. Do you have a sense of the collective opinion about what's going well, not going well?
Yes.
Okay, so is feedback really needed then?
Right. Yeah, probably not. Maybe.
So what do you think the higher need is? And I don't know the answer. I mean, I'm just asking a question.
Yeah.
What do you think the higher need is right now for you and your team?
Like we need direction. We need a bigger direction. Like, this isn't happening. Like, we're not able to grow our department. We're shrinking. We can cut back so much to keep what we have. There's a few ideas. However, we're only going to have so much capacity. What is the expectation on higher side from us?
And how could you get that?
Talk to Amanda's boss about that.
Is that feasible to do?
Yeah, that feels, yeah. And I think maybe that would give me some direction then to lead them. And like you said, or like helped allude to, like, that it's not I don't need feedback. I need to know how to like guide and lead them into those next things, because they don't know either.
Yeah. So I hear you saying, like, you know how your team feels.
Mm-hmm.
True. Yeah. You do lack appreciation, though. I hear you saying that, like, that you feel like
I'm spinning my, yeah, at the expense of what? Yeah.
Yeah, you feel like you're putting a lot of effort forward for little results, because you don't have a lot of opportunity. So to make change. So so it's, yeah, so one thing you kind of said is you can have a conversation with Amanda's boss. And I think, as I think about your team, what do they need? Like, if they're living in a world where they've given you feedback that isn't going anywhere,
or they don't have any feedback because they don't really know. I feel like that's a lot of it too. Like, I don't know, like, I don't even, like, I need multiple choice, or I don't even, because it's a lot of their first job, or they're just doing kind of what they know. They don't even know that there's an alternative, and it's more from lack of experience, not, but yes, keep going. Yeah, so they've given me,
yeah. So I'm just thinking, what's your boss's boss name? Brandon. So you're sitting with Brandon. What would be like ideal for you to hear from Brandon? What would that look like? How would you leave that conversation with encouragement?
With encouragement.
If you said you're hopeless,
you mean like,
you said you don't know what to do, and you feel isolated, like, and limited. So what would change those to be more hopeful, productive, and for you to feel like partnered with?
Yeah. So I think, could it be an email and not a face-to-face conversation?
Well,
is a question.
Let's set the method aside for a minute. Let's just talk about what if you were to hear something from Brandon. Can we role play?
Yes, because I wrote my questions down while you were talking.
Oh,
what
good.
I'm gonna ask.
Okay, well, tell me what the questions are, because I'm gonna be you, you're gonna be Brandon.
Okay.
What
Well,
are
I
the
guess I
questions?
can elaborate. Got it down. Brandon, what direction are we going? Like, where is our, and then, how do I need to lead with what we have? Basically, I want to know what their expectation is. As we shrink, what is Le Bonheur, what is the expectation?
That's good. Let's try it. You're gonna be Brandon.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay, great.
okay. Hey, Brandon, thank you for meeting with me today.
Hi, good, great. Hi. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure you're aware of kind of the circumstances of the department, but just to kind of recap a couple things. I feel like we are critical staff right now. We've recently lost 3 of our team members, or are in the process of losing them. And as a leader, I've collected a lot of feedback from them, and provided that, but I often feel I don't have the opportunity to impact any change in those areas. And, so I feel a little stuck in my leadership, and it's made me question if I understand the priorities of the organization and what, really what the direction is of the organization and what the expectations are for my department and me, considering kind of some of the circumstances. So I wanted to take the time today to really just hear from you and to see if you could help me with prioritization and in direction, and just also like what could I expect in terms of ongoing support. So that's kind of why I'm here today.
This is great. Well, you're doing a good job. I don't have any answers for you. Okay, so what would I think you would say?
Yeah, so I want, unless maybe, you could play it out with what he would say, but I really want to know, what does Michelle need out of that meeting?
Yeah.
Ideal Brandon says what?
Ideal Brandon says, let me come alongside you and look through what policies, or direct you to which policies I think need to be a priority, which I think I know those. Also, that should be, Amanda should be able to tell me that. And I know she can't. And so that is where it's also tricky. But yeah, I need support. He would tell me that he would come alongside me and figure out what I need to prioritize as far as like what we follow. And then also say, like, after we come up with whatever our plan is going to be, this is how I would like you to communicate it. Like, I'm happy to communicate it. I'm happy to also tell him who I think it should be communicated to. But almost like so that I can develop my plan that I know is going to be like, what, this is how it's supposed to happen, like, so it's like, how am I going to do the big overall hospital communication of, this is nutrition therapy's current situation, and this is how we're moving forward in light of where we are, and how we're moving forward is going to still like dot these I's and cross these T's, and what do those need to be? Like, we're following these policies, we're still going to be able to do X, Y, Z, and this is what we're not going to be able to do.
Okay.
And he's a pharmacist by trade. So he was a pharmacist, now director. He is over everybody that's licensed that's not a nurse. So he's over all dietitians, pharmacy, social work, child life.
Wow.
So some of his, and so he's a big deal, and his pharmacy brain, like when they're short staffed, he like shuts down the hours of outpatient pharmacy. Like, the pharmacy is just not open. Okay, well, because pharmacies are a lot of like, you can't be like a remote pharmacist, right? Like, you're doing a lot of like, I'm getting the medication, I'm getting it to you, I'm doing, so we can't just like close, but can we? You know, some of it is, and then he'll look to us to be like, okay, well, I need you to tell me some of these things. So I guess, and I appreciate that, like he's looking to us to be the expert in our field, but I just need some direction and potentially ideas on what big Le Bonheur / Methodist is okay with, like, or is that?
Yeah,
okay?
that's great. Yeah, so maybe let me come back to being Michelle again, and based on kind of some of the things that you talked about wanting to hear. So maybe coming into a Brandon and saying, hey, Brandon, I mean, first of all, you're over our area, and so I wanted to come and talk to you about this because it's, ultimately you represent to me the person who's going to be able to provide direction and prioritization for, our part of the organization. And I really feel like I need to have a better sense of, as we're in this critical staffed time, I feel like I have to make some difficult choices about how we spend our time, both me and our staff. And I've watched you be really creative before with the pharmacy. When you guys are short staffed, I've watched you like decide to shut down and run limited hours. And it would seem like that can't be done because medication is critical. And so, you need it, but you find a way to do that. And so I really, what I'm hoping to get from our conversation today is just a sense of what I should prioritize in our department, because we can't continue to do what we've been doing with the staff we have, and some creative ways that would be acceptable to you and Methodist as an organization. And then from there, being able to figure out, how do I communicate that? How would you prefer for us to communicate that out to the organization when we make those decisions? So I think, what I'm really looking for is just some leadership and partnership from you, because you do a great job, and I feel a little, I have talked to the team, and we have some, novel ideas of things to try. But I also want to make sure that they're acceptable to the organization. I don't want to make that assumption, and because I really want to work within the parameters of what leadership has for us. So, because I think what I heard, again, cut on our role play, what I heard you saying, Michelle, was that when you need some clarity and direction, and you desire to stay aligned to the organization but still be able to do your job well, lead your team. I also heard that you value Brandon. I mean, you value that it sounds like you respect him and value him, but that you really want to, you also feel stuck, and that you need help and partnership, because you use the words come alongside. And I think, that, does that sound right? Some partnership, advocacy, direction, but while you're still communicating, I feel stuck, but I want to stay aligned in my solutions. Does that seem right?
Yes. Bring out a paper. Still stuck, want to remain aligned.
So what would it look like to have that meeting?
Well, interestingly, Amanda was off all last week, and so I had a meeting with him on Friday also already, just because we were already in a hard place with Thursday's resignation. Him and I had a meeting on Friday about. And then I also talked to him about, we have 2 people in the wings that we're interviewing. We interviewed one like 2 weeks ago, gave her an offer. It's going to be a $60,000 pay cut.
Oh, yeah.
And talked about that as well. So it's like, hey, we're losing this person. We have 2 people usually covering cardiology. 1 position's open, and now we're losing this one. So we have this big heart institute that we support, and now we don't have any dietitians. We have people that are cross-covered, but they're in our NICU. So where do you want them to go? So that's where we are. And the conversation was to talk about that, to also talk about, I had a meeting with some other, I don't even know his fancy title. He's over all of outpatient to help me brainstorm, because this other applicant does a lot of quality stuff. And so I'm like, if we could get a kind of like a hybrid position, that's like a quality and dietitian position, it'd be super beneficial in the nephrology department, and it would increase their pay likely. And he's so gracious. He's like, I'd be more than willing to sit down with you and Brandon and write this job description and whatever. But basically what we came up with is we're not going to waste our time doing it, because we're not even getting positions that people are leaving approved to rehire right now. So we know that if we take this lofty idea, like, here's a new job description, would you consider approving this? It's going to be like, that's not even happening. So why waste our time? So those are the conversations I was having with him. Like, just like, hey, that would be interested in a position, probably not going to take it because we can't offer enough, have this person leaving. And then he did, so then the conversation started as like, well, what are things that we can do to make it feel not as much of a burnout for our department? And he just basically was like, you know, go forth and like think about these ideas. And then that's when I had the meeting with the department. And so.
Well, that sounds like you're teed up to have a follow-up then. Yeah, that's great. So you asked earlier, could it be an email?
Yeah.
It feels pretty important.
Yeah.
And I think I know that some of it is short on time because of, you know, and it feels probably more efficient, and probably too, like, you want to get your thoughts together.
Well, I would rather talk. I just feel like for his time, it feels like I can ask for a face meeting, which we can do, but maybe I give him the option of, here's some of the things I wanted to talk to you about, or like, if you prefer to communicate that, like, give him the option.
Why would you? Out of curiosity.
Just because, like, technically he's over all the directors and does whatever else. And it's like, if I'm now expecting, which part of me is like, I don't know, is that good? Maybe if managers start reaching out to him more that they don't have the guidance from their directors, then he'll see that. I guess I feel like out of respect of his time, like, it's like, this really should be something that my boss is either going to ask him, or she has more direction for me, but she doesn't.
Well, I would say you've communicated it's something really important. I mean, you've told me, you know, what you've told me, it feels very important. And I'm just going to put this out there, that I think that he has the ability to say no or yes or direct it. That's really not something you have to own.
No. Okay.
Because I think you believe it would be better in a face-to-face conversation because of its level of importance. So I would let him decide that. But I think it sounds like you left that last conversation very teed up to have this next one. And you've done some work with your team to brainstorm some ideas. And so I'm thinking, and this is kind of homework even, but that, you know, to finalize some novel ideas. They may not be your last ideas or the ones that you go with, but when you say things like, oh, we've thought about leaving at 3 and remote charting, like, when you go through some of those ideas that are different and out of the box, being able to demonstrate to him, because he said, go forth and think through these things. You being able to come back to him and say, hey, I thought we've tried to come up with some novel ideas that would help shift. And I've also, Brandon, taken a look, because this is what you were doing, you said, you know, from last week, I've taken a look at the things that we manage and do. And here's a list of the things that I think we can no longer do with the staff that we have. And I wanted you to take a look at that to be able to understand the impact, and to make sure you're okay if we stop to do those. And then if so, how do I communicate? So being able to come, because he said, go forth and think through them. So being able to come back to him and saying, I would love your thoughts on these things, but also you told me to come, you know, be thinking through it. And I have these ideas, but I don't know if they would be supported by, you know, my leadership. And so I wanted to bring them back. Because that's what you say you're looking for. You're looking for advocacy, partnership, And I mean, some creative ideas, yes, but just again, you're demonstrating trying to stay aligned while making impact and
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Um,
Great.
and again,
That's helpful.
back to those feelings, hopeless, underappreciated, isolated, and kind of stuck, and it sounds like what you've said is a conversation with Brandon would help maybe to make you feel more hopeful, unstuck.
And yeah,
And what?
give me direction.
Give you the direction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you kind of said before was your team doesn't give you feedback either because they don't have it because they're young, or because they
don't know either.
Yeah, they don't know. That's right. Or because they've seen that it doesn't really do anything. And so it seems like this could be an opportunity for you to be able to actually advocate and make some changes that would give you the ability to give them, like, have taken their feedback and done something with it, which
Yeah.
I'm imagining if they're a part of that process, you probably would then feel more of that appreciation or like positive, which kind of accomplishes that for you. Do you think that's right? Or
Yeah. I don't know that they gave me much feedback, but yes. And I could maybe also say, hey, I'm going to have this meeting.
Yeah, I love that.
I would, if you send me any of those things so that I can go forward with that.
Yeah. And I think that when we are thinking through feedback, and you did a great job. I'm thinking about that 3 p.m. cutoff thing, right? Like, it's hard sometimes. Your staff said it's that they don't know, right? They can't even think. They don't have a framework to think through it. It can be really hard when you're thinking within the limitations of what you know exists. And so even maybe challenging them, like, hey, if there were no limitations on what we could ask for, what would like ideal or utopia be? And for yourself to think through that too. Like, I think out of that comes, maybe you won't be able to do the whole of whatever it is, but it's through that creativity. We get really limited in our thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, yeah. Well, I think you've got, you went into the 911. We didn't really talk about what you wanted to talk about today specifically, but was this what you wanted to accomplish today?
Yes, but I do also want to report, I did have a conversation with Allison, the lead, about, we had her one-on-one and specifically had the conversation that was like, hey, in some of the work I've been doing with my executive coach, we have been working through things that I feel like are or are not going well with my relationship with Amanda, which she already is very, like, her and I have conversations about that, pretty transparent about that. And it shed light on things that maybe I feel like are going well with you and I's communication and some of the things that we share. And so I wanted to get your input because things such as like the cross cover calendar, I feel like we create these calendars and I feel like it's going well, but then I realized there's a lot of opportunities for like miscommunication or whatever, and I sort of whatever. So she said, I think it's excellent, and she could verbalize like, we in a dreamy world, we can both sit down and do it together. It's best because we have both of our brains in it and we are able to do it. She's like, but when that doesn't get to happen, you and I will realize in whatever month, hey, that person's about to go out with a sick child, I'll take it, and we communicate that, or that person just broke her foot, I'll tell her I'll take it. And she's like, I feel like it's going really well. And I was like, okay, that's good. And I was like, so I want to open that door to other things, like anything else that we're sharing. I'd like us to go through and just make sure that there's not a different way that we can be communicating better, or so. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really, it was good. I mean, it was great to hear her also say, yeah, I feel like that it's going well. We have not having exact structure for it, but having the connection and skills to be able to like communicate like we are is going well.
Yeah.
That was, and then I was on that safety call because Amanda was off all last week. She also came back 30-second side note. I think she's trying to escape some of her responsibilities. We have a formula tech position that mixes formula. They get paid like $20 an hour. It's like we could easily have other people that are trained to do that. She keeps on inserting herself into that role. She's like, I gotta go. We don't have somebody in that role. And I'm like, you are the director of our department and you're going to mix formula. Like you have all these anyway, side note. So she said, oh, I'll be in formula room again on Monday. What else? Oh, and she asked me if you could do safety and huddle or something to me. So I was like, great. Then today, all morning, I'm like, okay, she's not on the schedule to be in the formula room. Technically, she'd be taking the safety meeting back at 9 o'clock. And I just like, it was killing me all morning to not say something. At 9:07, she texted me and said, heads up, and I didn't join the meeting. At 9:07, she texted me and said, just heads up, I'm in the safety meeting this morning. And I was like, ah. So I wrote back and said, something like, I appreciate the communication. That's very helpful. Something,
How did that feel?
So
You say, I see,
good.
angsty.
Yeah, I'm like, I wanted that like an hour before, or like, just because it's out at that 9:07 thing popped up, and I was like, if I'm late to this meeting, that I need to get important information at the beginning, because you're just telling me that was going to make me, not happy. But it worked out. There was something else that happened with that too, that I was like, forget, like not offering her the solution, just kind of waiting. Oh, the department phone. I didn't ask her to take the department phone when she was leaving. And then she off at 10 o'clock at night with the department phone. But I just kind of let her work it out, and then was just like, all right, well, great, thanks. So I feel like that was better. So it's like, one of the things you had said, or we had talked about, was like holding back me offering her suggestions and having her have to ask me. And so that's what I'm trying to start doing more of, the like, don't say like, oh, will you be doing this? Or are you? It's like, I can go to her with questions I have about other things, but I don't need to offer my help to her. Like, she needs to learn how to ask, even though I know she has a hard time doing that. But
Michelle, first of all, going back to Allison first, one of the things that you said earlier is that you really want appreciation and partnership and alignment. And I just want to point out that really in that conversation with Allison, that's what you got. I know it's not for the whole of your department, but looking for that and seeing it in that, like, you have a great partnership with Allison that's working organically. You have alignment, and she maybe not directly, but she appreciates you.
yeah.
So looking for that with those eyes, I think you can see that there. And then I think with Amanda, like, I know it's really hard when we first start to draw boundaries, because either the other person or us are going to get really uncomfortable because it's a change in the dynamic, which is why you had that angst. And we talked about how you have such a sense of responsibility. And so it's you recognizing that it's not your responsibility, it's hers, and letting her own that. And I think in the aftermath, what you experience is freedom. Like, it's not on your plate. It'll take probably some repetition, but as you don't manage her and her responsibilities, you feel freedom, and probably you'll feel less bitterness and resentment, because when our boundaries are crossed, we can feel a lot of resentment, but we have to then come back to the realization they're my boundaries. I'm the one that's supposed to keep them, and not her.
Yeah.
So you're keeping them, and you just did such a great job in both of those examples. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
Keep flexing it, because you'll have lots of opportunity, I think, to keep setting them. Just keep them strong. Okay, well.
And I'll get the facility thing. That was like my third. So those were like my three things.
Which
like,
was what you say? The what?
Look at the division of responsibility stuff.
Yeah.
And but I don't have it, but I will. That's a carryover.
Yeah, great. So homework is to carry over that, to look at the division of labor. But I think probably even more pressing is the conversation with Brandon, it sounds like. So being able to get really some kind of novel ideas to go back with him to pitch. And see if you can't get his partnership, you know, and get some real prioritization and direction from him. I think you'd feel like a big, whew, okay, you know, encouragement and kind of bolstered. So maybe getting prepared for that and getting that either on the calendar or getting prepared to do that. Does that sound fair?
Yes. I think I have to get it on the calendar, because I feel like that's one thing, like, we don't have time for this. Like, we don't have time to wait. You gotta go.
Right. It's important. That's what I keep. Yeah, it's important. So,
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, we're at time, but great job today. I'm excited for you. I think you've got some great tracks to run on to get you some hope and encouragement. But let me know how I can support you. But I'll see you next week.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay.
See ya.
Bye, girl.
Bye.